الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. حدثنا عبد الرحمن بن أبي ليلى أنهم كانوا عند حذيفة فاستسقى فسقاه مجوسي فلما وضع القدح في يده رماه به وقال لولا أني نهيته غير مرة ولا مرتين كأنه يقول لم أفعل هذا ولكني سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول لا تلبسوا الحرير ولا الديباج ولا تشربوا في آنية الذهب والفضة ولا تأكلوا في صحافها فإنها لهم في الدنيا ولنا في الآخرة. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد عدد ما ذكره الذاكرون وصل على سيدنا مولانا محمد عدد ما غفل عن ذكره الغافلون. اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك بعدد معلوماتك. Tonight, inshallah, this will be the closing session of this series called Etiquettes or Islamic Etiquettes of Eating and Drinking. And after this, inshallah, we will embark on a new series and we will announce that, inshallah, in our next session. In this closing talk of etiquettes of eating, I would like to share 3 ahadith with you. Now, it doesn't mean that we're closing this series or this chapters because we have covered all of it, because certainly we did not cover all of it. And this is the reality with all the chapters and all the topics. There's never enough time to cover everything. But whatever was necessary, alhamdulillah, we covered that. The basics and the essentials of Islamic etiquettes of eating and drinking, most of it, alhamdulillah, we have already covered. The first hadith before us is the hadith about eating and drinking in golden vessels, golden bowls, golden plates, and using golden spoons, and not only made things made out of gold, but the things also made out of silver. So silver made and gold made vessels. What does Islam say about that? What is the teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about this issue? So Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, the heading that he has given to this hadith, he said, Babul akli fi ina'in mufaddad. The word mufaddad comes from fidda, and fidda means silver. And mufaddad means silver made. Anything that is made from silver. So the meaning of this heading is that, what is the ruling of eating from those vessels or from those utensils or bowls which are made of silver? And this also includes things made out of gold, because gold and silver, they come in the same category, and anything that is made out of gold and silver is included in this heading. So in this sub-chapter, the hadith that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi has mentioned says that Abdurrahman ibn Abi Layla, he was a tabi'i and he was a student of many Sahaba and a great muhaddith himself, a great learned scholar himself. So Abdurrahman ibn Abi Layla, he said that once they were with Hudayfa radiyallahu anhu. So Abdurrahman ibn Abi Layla and many other scholars or students of knowledge. They were sitting with Hudayfa bin al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu, who was a well-known Sahabi of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So all of a sudden, Hudayfa bin al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu, he asked for water. So the water was brought by a servant of his who was not a Muslim. So his servant was a fire worshipper, Majusi. So the fire worshipper, non-Muslim servant brought water for Sayyidina Hudayfa bin Yaman radiyallahu anhu. And the bowl or the glass in which he brought water, when he presented that to Hudayfa bin Yaman radiyallahu anhu, he placed the bowl in the hand of Hudayfa bin Yaman radiyallahu anhu. When Hudayfa radiyallahu anhu received that and he looked at it, he threw it back at him. Ramahu bihi. He threw that glass or bowl, whatever that was, back at this servant. Then he said something. He said, لَوْلَا أَنِّي نَهَيْتُهُ غَيْرَ مَرَّةٍ وَلَا مَرَّتَيْنِ. If I had not told you once, twice, or more. Meaning, the narrator explains, كَأَنَّهُ يَقُولُ لَمْ أَفْعَلْ هَذَا. That if I had not explained to you many times, repeatedly, that don't bring me water in bowls or vessels made out of gold or silver. If I had not told you repeatedly not to bring me water in these bowls, I would not have thrown that at you. So, in other words, he became hard in teaching his servant in this manner because he had taught him before many times. Not just once or twice, many times, that don't bring me water in this. So at this time, when the servant repeated the same mistake, he gave him a hard lesson and he threw that glass back at him. And he said, لَوْلَا أَنِّي نَهَيْتُهُ غَيْرَ مَرَّةٍ وَلَا مَرَّتَيْنِ. If I had not told you once, twice, or more not to bring me water in this, I would have not thrown this back at you. Because this is not good. Even if the person was the servant of Hudayfa radiyallahu anhu, but Islam has placed so much emphasis on giving good treatment even to the slaves that this goes against those teachings. So he explained why he did that. Then he said, لكني سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, the reason why I refused to accept water in a glass or bowl made out of gold or silver is because I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, لا تلبسوا الحرير. Do not wear silk. ولا الديباج is another form of silk. ولا تشربوا في آنية الذهب والفضة. And do not drink in vessels made out of gold and silver. ولا تأكلوا في صحافها. And do not eat in plates that are made out of gold and silver. فَإِنَّهَا لَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَلَنَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ. Because these vessels and these bowls and plates that are made out of gold and silver, they are for the non-Muslims in this world, and for Muslims, for us, it will be in the hereafter. In the hereafter, all of this that will be presented will be in gold and silver, because these are the things that present beauty. So, in this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited Muslims from wearing silk and from drinking or eating by the token of same instruction in vessels made out of gold and silver. So these are the two instructions. But the first instruction is only for men. So the prohibition of wearing silk, the garments made out of silk, is only applicable to men. Men are not allowed to wear silk, pure silk. Women, it is halal for them. The second prohibition applies equally to men and women. Although women are allowed to wear jewelry made out of gold and silver, But when it comes to eating from bowls and vessels made out of gold and silver, they are also forbidden. They are also not allowed to use these. So this prohibition equally applies to men and women, and the wearing of silk only applies to men. They're not allowed to wear silk. Now, in this day and in this age, there would hardly be any people in the mainstream who would have their vessels made out of pure gold and silver. It's very expensive. I'll tell you a story. Once I was flying from Pakistan to New York, and that's maybe 15 years ago or more. I was probably 12 or 13 at that time. So, in that plane, there was a gentleman. He was showing off to other people that he had a little case, a box, in which he used to keep his naswar. Naswar is a tobacco. So he used to keep that in that little box, and the little box he was telling all other people, there were like 5-10 people around him, he was telling them, this is made out of pure gold. He was basically boasting. He was showing off that, look, I'm so rich that I have this naswar case which is made out of pure gold. And its value is about $10,000 at that time. So, people sometimes do these kind of things. Sometimes they do this just to show off. So, in old days, many people who were wealthy, because they did not have banks and they did not have places to store the money, so they would buy gold, silver, and things made out of gold and silver and keep it in their house. And if you see these, if you were to see these things in their houses, you would understand that this person is a wealthy person, this person is a rich person. Nowadays, this is not the case. Nowadays, people, even if they use fancy things, they never use things made out of pure gold and silver. So, even though the teaching of Rasulullah ﷺ is still there, guiding us, but it's not that relevant because most people don't have that. Most people don't have vessels or utensils, forks and spoons made out of gold and silver. However, there's something that is more common, and that is gold-plated. Your vessels, your plates, your cups, your glasses, not made out of gold and silver, but plated with gold and silver. And one thing that is even more common, that sometimes just the top of a cup or glass would be plated with gold or silver. Or the siding of something would be plated with gold or silver. Not the whole thing, but just the siding. And nowadays, sometimes you even have pens that have some part of it plated with gold or silver. And those are very expensive. So what is the instruction of Islam with regard to these gold-plated vessels, gold-plated utensils? Not made from gold, but plated with gold. So this hadith, and especially the heading, applies to that as well. So now the fuqaha, there are some differences of opinion amongst the scholars with regard to the gold-plated things. And some say that gold-plated is allowed because in this the Prophet ﷺ said, those things that are made out of gold and silver. He did not say the things that are plated with gold and silver. So some scholars do say that it is allowed, but majority of scholars say that even this prohibition applies to those things which are plated with gold and silver. And especially if the plating of gold and silver is on those areas which you use to hold the cup, like the cup holding, or the places from where you use the cup to drink. So you put your mouth on the cup, or you use the plate to put your hand in it, and your hand touches that gold plating or that silver coating, then that prohibition applies to that as well. So the scholars have given many details in light of this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I just want to share a few with you that the ulama, the fuqaha have mentioned. So the ulama have mentioned that according to this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not only drinking and eating from vessels made out of gold and silver is not allowed, but even if you were to have a vessel in which you keep oil or you keep perfume, even those vessels you should not have made from pure gold and silver. If gold and silver is plated around those things, that's acceptable because you don't directly use it. Instead, you use something with it. But if it is made from pure gold and silver, then they say that that should not be used either. وَكَذَا لَا يَجُوزُ الْإِكْتِحَالُ بِمَيْلِ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ. And the ulama have also mentioned, وَيُكْرَهُ أَن يَتَوَضَّأَ فِي طَسْتٍ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ. It is not allowed to make wudu from a pot of water which is made of gold and silver. So if you have a pot that you use to pour water on your hands, but that pot is made out of gold or silver or has coating of gold and silver, you should not use it. Sometimes people even have those buckets that we use in bathrooms made out of gold and silver. That's the insanity of some people. Now, this is about the gold and silver and those things which are plated with gold and silver. The ulama have also mentioned that you are not allowed to use a pen that is also made out of gold and silver. Or, in other words, if the pen is not made out of gold and silver, but it has the coating, it has the plate of gold and silver. So if the plating of gold and silver is on that area from where you hold the pen, then you are not allowed to use it. But if it is on the tip or somewhere else, then if you're not touching it, then you're allowed to use it. Now, this is about those things which we use. And same applies to chair as well. If your chair is gold plated or made from gold or silver, you would not be allowed to use it. But if you have something just for decoration purpose, like if you have a pen that's just for decoration, or if you have vessels or utensils just for decoration and they're made of gold and silver, it is permissible to have them. It is permissible to own these things, but it is not permissible to use these things for personal use, such as eating, drinking, and stuff like that. So this is about eating and drinking in those vessels that are made out of gold and silver and the gold plated. The next hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. He says, مَا عَابَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم طَعَامًا قَطُّ إِنِ اشْتَهَاهُ أَكَلَهُ وَإِنْ كَرِهَهُ تَرَكَهُ. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never ever criticized any food. When he saw some food or when he was presented with a meal, he never criticized the food. Even if the food was disgusting and dislikable, he never criticized it. So what did he do? إِنِ اشْتَهَاهُ أَكَلَهُ. If he liked it, he ate it. وَإِنْ كَرِهَهُ تَرَكَهُ. If he did not like it, he simply left. He simply did not eat it. So this is what we learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his seerah, his life, that if you are presented with a meal, you should never criticize it. That should apply to food in restaurant too. Although in restaurant we go and pay, but this hadith should be revived, and this sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam should be revived, even if you're visiting a restaurant. Even if you're eating at a restaurant. If you're eating at a restaurant, you can give them an advice that you can improve your food. Or you can improve your standard. But you should not criticize it. Just to have this hadith in your sight. And especially if you're invited at someone's house. Or if you are eating at your own house. Your wife cooked the food. And if you don't like it, don't criticize it. If you like it, you should praise it, you should appreciate it, and you should be thankful to Allah. But if you don't like it, you should never criticize it. This would be against the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never criticized any food. If he liked it, he ate it. If he did not like it, he simply left from the place. But he never criticized any food. The last hadith is a very important one, and the Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi has given a very beautiful heading. Let's look at that. Babu ma kana an-nabiy sallallahu alayhi wa sallam la ya'kul hatta yusamma lahu faya'lama ma huwa. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would never eat anything unless he was told the name of that food, and if he was familiar with it, he would eat it. If he was not familiar with it, he would not eat it. So he would always get the name first. What is the name of this dish? And then he would eat it. Let's look at the hadith. The hadith is narrated by Abu Umama bin Sahal bin Hunayf. He said that Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma told him this hadith, that once Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anh, who was also called Saifullah, the sword of Allah, this title was given to him by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So once Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anh, he entered the home of Maymuna radiyallahu anha, and he was with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anh, they entered the home of Maymuna radiyallahu anha. Can anybody help me with who's Maymuna radiyallahu anha? If you know it, say it. No guess game. Who's? That's good, but she has a very significant role. She is the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And she was the last wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was the last woman that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married. So Maymuna radiyallahu anha, she was the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So basically Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered his own house, the house of one of his wives, and with him was Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu. And now Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu, he says, وَهِيَ خَالَتُهُ وَخَالَةُ ibn Abbas, that Maymuna is the aunt of Khalid bin Walid, and she's also the aunt of Abdullah ibn Abbas. How are they related? Khalid bin Walid is the nephew of Maymuna radiyallahu anha. At the same time, Abdullah ibn Abbas is also the nephew of Maymuna radiyallahu anha. So Maymuna radiyallahu anha, she is the daughter of Harith bin Hizam. She's known as Maymuna bint al-Harith radiyallahu anha. So her father was Harith bin Hizam, and he had 16 daughters. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 16 daughters. And so Maymuna radiyallahu anha had about 4 real sisters and then half sisters. So she had a lot of relatives. Big family. Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu was also her nephew, and so was Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. So the mother of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu was al-Fadl, and she was the sister of Maymuna. And the mother of Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu was another sister of Maymuna radiyallahu anha, and her name was Lubaba al-Kubra. So they were all related. So Maymuna radiyallahu anha was the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was the aunt of Abdullah ibn Abbas and Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anhu. So they went to visit Maymuna radiyallahu anha. فَوَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا ضَبًّا مَحْنُودًا. When they were there was the food time, maybe lunch or dinner. So there was food prepared. And what was in that meal? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam found dab, which was roasted. Now this is a little difficult to understand. Dab is a kind of lizard. And this was roasted. A lizard was roasted. It's not like an ordinary lizard that we see in our houses. It's a lizard that normally is found in deserts and in open areas. And I have seen it. In fact, after reading this, I had read this hadith before as well, but this thought never crossed my mind that maybe I should Google it. So, what did I do? If you put lizard in Google, you will get so many results and the species of lizards and all those things. So what I did, I put dhab in Google. I changed the language into Arabic and I put dhab in Google, and guess what was there? There was a recipe of cooking lizard. And there were all instructions, how to cook lizard, how to catch a lizard, and then how to cut it, how to clean it, and then how to cook it. I couldn't even see that. There were pictures too. So, in this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to have this lunch in the house of Maymuna radiyallahu anha, he saw that there was a lizard that was roasted. So they roasted on fire this lizard. قدمت به أختها حفيدة بنت الحارث من نجد. But this lizard was not local. It was imported from another place. And who brought it? Who imported it? It was another sister of Maymuna radiyallahu anha, whose name was Hufayda. So another sister, she probably was married to someone in that place in Najd. And when she was coming to visit her sister in Medina, she thought maybe I should take some present for my sister and for her brother-in-law, for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the best thing that came to her mind was probably a lizard, because in Medina people did not eat it. Even in Mecca people did not eat it. But in Najd maybe people ate it. So she brought a lizard. She brought that dhab to the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the house of Maymuna radiyallahu anha, and they decided to cook it. So they roasted it. Now, فَقَدَّمَتِ الضَّبَّ لِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. So this is what they prepared, this is what they cooked. So they presented this, Maymuna radiyallahu anha and her sister, and there were some other ladies as well present during that meal. So they presented that to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَكَانَ قَلَّمَا يُقَدِّمُ يَدَهُ لِطَعَامٍ حَتَّى يُحَدَّثَ بِهِ وَيُسَمَّى لَهُ. Now this is important. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would rarely extend his hand to the food unless he was told what was there on the table and the name of it. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would find out the name of the dish and he would be told what is being served on the menu. So فَأَهْوَى رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ يَدَهُ إِلَى الضَّبِّ. But in this incident, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, without having this information, he was about to put his hand on the meal, on the food, and all of a sudden, a woman who knew about the habit of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said, فَقَالَتْ إِمْرَأَةٌ مِّنَ النِّسْوَةِ الْحُضُورِ. All those women, all those ladies who were present during that time, one of them, she said, أخبرنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما قدمتن له. Tell Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم what you are giving him. So he is informed. هو الضب يا رسول الله. Then they said, Ya Rasulullah, this is the lizard that we are offering to you. فرفع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He was about to put his hand on the meal and he pulled it back. He pulled his hand back and then he did not eat it. He stayed there. He did not get up and leave, and he did not criticize it. He did not say anything. He did not make any comments on the food, but he pulled his hand. He did not eat it. On the other hand, Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu anh, he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Aharamun ad-dabbu ya Rasulullah? Ya Rasulullah, is lizard haram? That's why you're not eating?" Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La, walakin lam yakun bi ardi qawmi." He said, "No, it's not haram. But it is not a food that is found on our land, in our area. فَأَجِدُنِي أُعَافُهُ. And I don't like it. I feel bad. I feel disgusted by eating this kind of food." So Khalid radiyallahu anh, He said, فَاجْتَزَزْتُهُ فَأَكَلْتُهُ. He cut it into pieces and he ate it. وَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ يَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِ. And Rasulullah was looking at him. He was like, what is he doing? That's what he said. Rasulullah يَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِ. Rasulullah kept staring at Khalid ibn Walid, that look how he's eating this food. And Rasulullah could not even look at the food. So, a few lessons, and then we will conclude, inshallah. Some people, and in fact many people, are those that are not attracted to some particular foods. So food may be halal, but either the nature of the food or the way it is cooked, you're not attracted to it. In fact, you are turned off by that food. You want to turn away from that food. So this is something that's natural. This is something that's allowed. This is something we learn from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, for example, we come from a different part of the world, and we are attracted to some particular food. But that particular food may be disgusting to some people. Similarly, some other people who are coming from a different part of the world, they may love some particular food, but to some other people it may be disgusting. Like among Arabs, eating eyeballs is one of the loveliest foods, one of the most delicious dishes. And for me, for people, in our area, eating the eyeball is like the farthest thing that you can imagine. I would never do that. So these are the differences in our upbringing, in our cultures, in our way of life that do exist, and there's nothing wrong with it. As long as what you're eating is halal, it will be halal. It will be considered halal. There will be no objection to it. There will be nothing wrong with it. But naturally, you may be inclined to some food, and you may be disliking some food by nature. You have nothing to do with it, but naturally you probably don't like some food. So in this we learn that lesson from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that it is natural and it is allowed. Also, if the other person is eating something that you don't like, but it is halal, you should not criticize that person either. You may look at it, you may, feel strange in your own heart that how can you eat that? But don't criticize him. Don't tell him, how can you eat that? And this is what we learned from this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Any questions? Yes.
You said that silk is not allowed for men, but what about nowadays synthetic silk and even rockets coming with synthetic silk?
Yeah, the artificial silk is not included in that ruling. It would be better to avoid it, but nowadays I think 95% of silk is artificial silk, machine-made silk, and that is not prohibited. That prohibition applies to pure silk that comes from the natural sources.
Is it okay to wear silver rings?
I'm sorry?
Silver rings.
Yeah, silver ring is allowed for men as well as women. For women, they're allowed to wear jewelry made out of gold as well and silver. For men, only a silver ring is allowed. A ring made from gold or any other metal is not allowed.
What about we have watches nowadays that are gold plated but not exactly gold, and also sometimes they have diamonds and expensive.
It's better not to use it. A diamond is something else. Diamond you can wear. Yeah.
What about white gold for men? Is that
White gold is also a form of gold, as far as I know. If that changes, then obviously I will say something else about that as well. But as far as I know, white gold is also a form of gold, and
Gold with some mixture to make it white.
yeah. So that's also gold, and that's also forbidden for men.
There's a reason that I don't know how true it is, but a number of years ago, there was a person who used it. He said the silk reduces the male hormones, so you tend to become more feminine. So it's a good idea not to wear silk. Probably that may be a true thing, that people tend to lose their masculinity, be of manhood. So not a good idea to wear silk.
And it's also for security reasons. If you have too much visible gold, people can kill you and take your gold. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك بعدد معلوماتك. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاكم